The reason so many innocent Palestinians are wounded or killed might have to do with the way Hamas fights. Hamas are cowards. They use innocent Palestinians as human shields. They fire rockets from family rooftops or from schools. When I asked NASA about 8,000 rockets, like Sarah quoted, being fired from Hamas since Israel left the land, he says,
Rockets did not start a long time ago. The rockets has not been there for like maybe a year or two max.
The defensive operation was designed to dismantle the infrastructure of Hamas, which has fired more than 10,000 rockets, mortars, and missiles at Israel since 2001.
It is not a Holocaust. This was the Holocaust. This is where my grandparents, and this is a reminder of my grandparents that I never met, of my grandmother who was killed in Greece, and my grandfather who was killed in Yugoslavia of a Holocaust. And the reason that they were killed is because they were Jewish. That was their crime.
Trying to understand Palestinians' hatred towards Israel regarding Gaza, land the Palestinians now control, they are upset of Israel's control over their freedoms to get in and out. Isn't this a misinterpretation of a concentration camp? To have a hedge around there where Palestinians are limited in going and coming. I hear what you're saying.
Right.
And that is containment.
Correct.
For whatever reason Israel's doing it.
I call it Gaza concentration camp.
Who better to know about a concentration camp than a Holocaust survivor? Cornelia had the misfortune of surviving not just one camp, but 4 concentration camps. How sad we have to remind the world what a concentration camp is.
I was in 4 concentration camps. I was already widow. I lost my husband when I was 26 in Yugoslavia. The Hungarian Nazi make a pogrom, Novi Sad, and they killed my husband.
They're holding signs up here saying that what's happening in Israel today in Gaza is the same thing they're equating to, the signs are saying, the Holocaust. What do you say to that?
What is a Holocaust? I went through. I lost my 2 sons. One was 6 years old, other was 3.5, and my mother was 50. I went through.
You went through enough suffering.
Suffering. They don't know what is a concentration camp.
I'd like to know if any of these protesters ever walked through the Holocaust Museum firsthand, where Hitler stripped Jews of their clothes, stripped them of their name, stripped them of their dignity, and reduced them to a number tattooed on their arm, then systematically set forth to kill every one of them, just for being a Jew. It wasn't adding up, demonizing Israel. Why? Didn't NASA know about the greenhouses? That before Israelis left Gaza, American Jewish philanthropists raised $14 million to save 3,000 greenhouses for the Palestinians, to help them become self-supporting. As soon as Israel left Gaza, the Palestinians destroyed the greenhouses. The Palestinians had the ability to export produce, but chose instead to use the greenhouses for terrorist training bases and exporting terror.